freestyle 90-minute show incoming. Whew, the Chiefs stay undefeated with yet another win, and we got a jam-packed show. I got a special guest. We got to talk left tackle, new wide receivers, the defense. But first, I guess the Chiefs decided to make another move. Let's talk about it.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome back to another KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our partners in possible. And I am not Kent Swanson, so I will no longer be trying to copy what he does from here on out. This is my show. I am in charge. This is my ship. Now, I am the captain now, and I am happy to be joined by the one, the only Craig Stout. And Craig, I have great news for you. I do not have a song prepped when you start to talk this time. Mostly because Tucker is busy today, and I didn't want to get convoluted with everything else with some Joshua Uche news coming in. I didn't want to get convoluted with that. But Craig, how you doing, pal?
I'm doing wonderful. I miss our good buddy Kent, but at the same time, he's hanging out with people that are more important to most of the people that listen to this podcast than the two of us. But I'm more than happy to jump in, be a part of this wonderful podcast with you, Maddie. We'll see if it holds true. Normally when there's two individuals and I'm one of them, we tend to go very long. We'll see if that happens. For those of you that are listening to the audio only podcast, I apologize. I am a little gravelly today. I went and supported the Colorado Buffaloes this weekend, and I mistreated my voice just a little bit, and so I'm on the ragged edge of losing it.
Let's go. I dusted out the old home field buff shirt too, because I knew Craig was coming on and he was out there.
Feels good. Feels good.
Listen, my voice is a little on the fritz too. I'm over here drinking a little hot toddy, trying to survive through this. So this is gonna be good. We do got some big stuff to get into. We are gonna get into it in a second. The first thing I wanted to say was though, Craig, what were just your general thoughts from the game? Right, you don't got to recap the whole game. Just real quick thoughts from the Chiefs' victory over the Las Vegas Raiders.
Man, I'm glad that Steve Spagnuolo is the defensive coordinator for my favorite football team.
I want to see him play.
You know what? I believe in him. I do. Like, put him out there at corner. Let's find out what happened.
What injury from him happened to suit up?
Dave Merritt might get the most out of him for all we know. No, defense is phenomenal. It's been a continuation of last year. Defense is phenomenal. Patrick looked a lot more comfortable out there. Yeah, he's got a little happy feet at times. Max Crosby ruined an entire drive, essentially, by lining up next to Wanya Morris. But it looked better. It looked even better when D-Hop was on the field as well. I know we're going to get to that here in a little while. It's good to see Travis Kelce look good. It felt comfortable the entire time. And I think that was the most important piece. It never felt like it was out of control after those first couple of drives. Like, that's kind of when it was, defense is locked in now. Offense is moving the ball at will when they're not killing themselves with stupidity or anything like that. It just felt like a team that knew that it was in control the entire time, took their foot a little bit off of the gas towards the end of the game. Obviously they score that garbage time touchdown and make it look a lot closer than it was. But at no point did I sit and watch that game and go, oh man, I really wish that this was a hell of a lot better. No, outside of a drive, I was just kind of like, oh no, this is comfortable and in control. And that's pretty much what we've been asking for as Chiefs fans for all year? Just win convincingly, feel comfortable throughout the entire time doing it. That's what it felt like. Even though it was only a score separating the two, it was not. It was really not.
Fake score. Yeah, it's a fake one-score game, right? Now, it wasn't a blowout. It was just a fake one-score game.
Correct.
We'll get deeper into some of the nitty-gritty of the game. I just, you're not on the post game now, so I want you to be able to get off your big overarching thoughts. And so, the first thing we got to talk about, is Kent's not here. Yeah, I know, another curveball. Kent's not here. That means we get to talk defense, Craig. We got a lot of defensive talk queued up. We don't get to do it anymore with Kent in charge. He gets that defense segment at like 50 minutes and says, Sorry, guys, only 10 minutes to talk about Steve Spagnuolo this week. Sorry. So we get a lot of defensive talk. And I guess no better place to start than today. The Kansas City Chiefs sitting here undefeated, first place in the AFC West, first place in the AFC, first place in the NFL by multiple games, I might add. And here they are chilling. They're you know what we should do? We should go out and get better. Let's go ahead and trade a 2026 sixth round pick for Joshua Uche from the New England Patriots. And I pronounce it that way because that is how he has asked his name to be pronounced, Craig. I know, you're back here for that. He has asked it to be Joshua Uche is how you pronounce his name.
Uche.
That,
Uche.
Yep. Like Bobby Boucher. But so Joshua.
Oh, even better. Love it.
Love
it.
So the Chiefs trade for him for a 2026 sixth round pick. Craig, initial reaction to that trade coming through?
A player this free should not be as good as he is. How about that? I mean, Joshua Uche should be worth more than a future sixth round pick. To put that in perspective, that's kind of what we were seeing with, Neil Farrell, who hasn't really played very much for this. I think it was a worthy swing by the Chiefs, but that's like the level of player that I expect when we're talking future sixth round picks, or a guy that's really expensive that, teams just trying to offload, trying to get some cap space back. Joshua Uche is neither one of those things. He is a very functional, quick twitch pass rusher that wins very fast. That's his forte there. Doesn't really play the run, but hey, Chiefs have a few guys that can play the run, is just going to kind of mix in immediately in dime packages and be a more than functional pass rusher. Chiefs pass rush isn't something that I've watched over the past couple of weeks, and I've been like, oh man, they definitely need help. I thought help was coming. I thought that, some of the growth of some young players was really showing there. But this, when I saw the compensation, a future sixth, I get exactly what, like you figure that out. You figure out a way to get him in the rotation because that player is too good in the specific thing that he does that the Chiefs don't currently have that they can rely on. Yeah, you throw that out there and you figure it out on your roster later. I love this move for, obvious passing situations.
I think that's the biggest thing for me, right? Is like this is a free player, more or less, right? You're trading a 2026 sixth round pick. So in order for this trade to essentially come out as dead even, he has to more or less sign a contract of roughly what he is on now, and you will be getting a comp pick back after this year to the Chiefs that is essentially going to be the same as what you traded away at the same timetable. So like more or less, as long as he signs a deal that is worth any form above like a vet minimum, you were getting close to essentially the same thing you traded away for him. That already right there, good deal in itself, no matter who the player is for. Then you go and watch, and man, I get this year in the New England Patriots situation where they're rarely ahead. They're clearly trying to rebuild. Here's a guy on an expiring contract, how they want to not get out of the contract, but like they might want to move on from a guy that is such a very specific role player. He's a pass rusher, right? Very specific. They don't get to utilize him a ton, but even when they do get to utilize him, we got a pass rush win rate, according to Pro Football Focus, still at 17%, which is going to be out of guys with 50 pass rushes or more. That's still 18th best in the entire NFL. In 2022, according to ESPN's analytics, he had set the best pass rush win rate efficiency of any player ever. Now, granted, they only kept it since like 2018 or something, but still, like the best ever during that season. Like this is a guy that knows how to get after the quarterback. He knows how to do it at an elite level. He's been great at it. Even this year, you go back and watch through this year, he's still been good this year. Like I went back and watched, I tweeted out one little clip. There's a few more, and there's like, hey, this guy still got the fastball. He just doesn't get to use it a ton. And then the way that defense is structured right now, there's some other issues going on. So I think this move's great for the Chiefs. I guess like my next question for you is you're looking at this Chiefs defensive end room, defensive line room in general, and people are going to say, hey, Felix and Udike Uzoma's playing better. Mike Dana should be back from injury soon. Charles Omenihu's still tweeting like he's about to come back in the near future. Oh, they also have George Karlaftis who's playing great. Chris Jones is moving around. Tershawn Wharton. They have a fair amount of guys. The depth of the defensive line room might not be as bad or as questionable as we thought coming in. So what do you think this move says about the rest of the room, if anything?
Felix was obviously the first guy that I went to there, first round pick last year, a guy that we looked at and we said, this guy could be a quick twitch, quick pass rusher, bendy, burst, all of those things that aren't necessarily the hallmarks of this team and of this defensive end room still aren't. Felix is playing much better. but it's largely against the run. And so we're seeing him get a lot of run there. And we can come back. Trust me, we're going to come back to Felix and defending the run here in a little while, because it's been truly remarkable to watch the evolution of him lately. But Uche is just one of those guys that is a very specific, tailor-made weapon in a very specific way. And that has not been Steve Spagnuolo's historical forte. That he has been he wants guys that are long, strong, down to get the friction on, and could do, inside, outside versatility, all of that stuff, play with power. We have seen that evolve over time. And we've gotten to the point where he likes to build that foundation out of those types of guys, the Chris Joneses, the Mike Danas, the Frank Clark, even, Malik Herring is another guy that you just think of that kind of fits that mold. George Karlaftis certainly does as well. But he's gotten better at taking maybe these, I don't want to call him one-trick pony, because that's not fair to the other people that I'm about to mention here, but guys that have a trump card in a very specific role on this defense. I'm talking Leo Chanel, a guy that if you weaponize him exactly appropriately, he can become a weapon in that one specific thing. Joshua Uche, I apologize, Joshua Uche, is that guy that can do exactly that for the pass rush. You line him up in dime situations. You know that he's coming off the edge. He's not kicking inside. That's just not going to be where he's going to rush primarily from. This gets Chris Jones the ability to rush more inside when he wants to. George Karlaftis can rush inside as well. When Charles Omenihu comes back, he can be a part of that rotation. Mike Dana can be a part of that. Chuck Omenihu can. But you're always going to have Joshua Uche off of one of the edges in these dime obvious passing situations. And when I look at it that way, and I look at, what we're kind of clamoring for, the secondary is a little beat up right now. Corner room is a little thin. You can evaluate the trade market. You can evaluate what's out there and say, I don't love what we have to give up to make the cornerback room better. Why don't we go out and get a guy in obvious passing situation that's essentially free, a future 6th round pick that can put us in this situation, which we are in often. What you alluded to, the Patriots are not. The Chiefs are in a situation often where the opposition is passing and in long 3rd down situations. Go give me Uche that can come out there, win quick, and now all of a sudden, corner doesn't matter as much anymore if you've got that kind of pressure that's coming off the edge.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that. I want to kind of go back through at the beginning. My initial thought too was with Felix, but then I was thinking, he has been playing better and he's been playing the run pretty well. My next thought is, okay, maybe Mike Dana's pec injury is a little bit more severe than we thought, because I don't think Omenihu's recovery's been stalled out. The way he's tweeting, the way he's acting sure seems like he feels, or he wants the world to feel like he's on his way still, right? So my next thought is maybe Mike Dana's pec injury isn't healing quite as quickly as they hoped or as well as they hoped, and maybe Felix is still going to keep eating those reps and they want some more depth. Then my final thought where I settled is, I don't know if it says anything about the room. Maybe they just wanted another talented guy that they've always been interested in. I said it on the live reaction show. There were rumors that the Chiefs liked Uche coming out in the NFL draft. I don't think even back then in 2020, they were going to draft him and put him at defensive end. He was going to be Leo Chenal before Leo Chenal. That was going to be his role. Now, I don't think he's as good off ball, but he's a better pass rusher. So maybe there's a little bit, you finagle that a little bit and you allow Spags and Daly and all these guys to figure out how they want to attack and use them as that weapon. I think this is another weapon like that. I will say this does probably mean Cam Thomas goes back to being inactive. That's the one guy that I do think probably gets hit a little bit by this move. And maybe it's because they saw something that they didn't love as much, or maybe it's just, that's just the way the NFL is a business. They like him better. So I don't know if it says anything directly about the room other than maybe Cam Thomas, they don't think is as good of a pass rusher as Uche is going to be. But on the field, I just think they want to use him as a weapon, which is going to be a pass rusher. And to your point, who are you trading a future 6th round pick to get a quarterback that's going to go out there and play? You can't get
exactly it. Yeah.
Who's the 3rd down only cornerback that's going to come in and make a difference? Right? Who's that player? That doesn't exist, right? So you go out and you find a guy that's going to help your coverage unit by proxy because he can get to the pass rusher, which leads me to my big point. I actually wanted to ask you about this because again, I don't get to talk defense. Steelers have like made this famous with TJ Watt, and other teams have caught on. The Titans have done it to the Chiefs a lot. I wonder if there's a connection between the Titans and the Steelers. I don't know. And then there was, I think the Ravens have started to do it a little bit too. A lot of teams, some teams kind of go with the high-low pass rush from their defensive ends. One guy's always going to spike and come in low through the chest of a tackle. The other defensive end's going to go deep up the arc and go for the speed. And that way the quarterback has to decide, I'm either drifting into one or stepping up into another. The Chiefs don't have the speed. Felix has gotten better, but he hasn't really shown you a true speed rush yet, the ability to turn the corner. Guess who has? Joshua Uche can do that excellently at an elite level. So if the Chiefs want to go into that high-low rush strategy that some teams have been using to great effect in the NFL, maybe this is a guy that does that. And Spags, has kind of been tweaking his mentality on what to do with some of these defensive ends, getting different kinds of athletes. I wonder if this is something he has seen that he can exploit against, I don't know, let's say quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, who like Patrick Mahomes are very mobile in the pocket, that are going to move instead of just trying to navigate within this tiny space. Maybe he's going to flush them. I wonder if this is a very, I see our contenders and how they play. I wonder if this high-low pass rush can get there, and we don't have the high part of this pass rush yet.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think that, again, for everything that Felix is right now, he's not to that point yet. That's just not where he is.
But getting better.
Yet. He's getting better. I mean, his progress against the run has given me a whole new outlook on the player himself. I'm like, he's clearly working his ass off. They're getting the most out of him in that regard. He took to task, I need to get better at this, and he did, like, significantly better. So I'm not saying, oh, he's gone, they're casting him to the wind or anything like that, but it's not there now. And if you're going for the three-peat and you've got a team that's willing to give up a player of this specific skill set to try and fulfill that role, yes, I can absolutely see that, Maddie. It makes sense to try and set that high-low, flush a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen into, where Nick Bolton can be. I think, if you're thinking about Lamar Jackson, what's the way that he really can damage the Chiefs? Well, when he breaks contain, and now you're telling Nick Bolton, okay, guess what? Lamar Jackson's on a two-way go out of this backfield. Good luck, buddy. There are very few linebackers in the entire NFL that are going to be able to catch him. So now you're telling Nick Bolton, we're going to layer this in such a way that Lamar's going to be escaping to his left or to his right specifically. You are forcing him to try and cut the field in half. You are forcing him maybe to go to a non-dominant side that he's more uncomfortable with. And on top of that, hey, buddy, when he starts to break contain, beeline to the flat. You got this. He's only going one way for you, so go that way. I love that premise, by the way. I love the fact that they can do that with these guys. But even outside of that, we are starting to see George Karlaftis get a lot more attention. A lot more attention. He's winning more, and he's creating more damage in the backfield there. We know that Chris Jones is getting doubled. We're leaving one-on-ones now to Turk Wharton, who's making the most of them, really is making the most of them. And guys like Mike Dana, who hasn't been healthy enough yet, Felix, who, again, from a pass rush perspective, is still coming along. You've got another guy that's basically always going to see one-on-ones. You can't chip Joshua Uche if you've got George Karlaftis on the other side and Chris Jones in the middle, or Chris Jones on the outside, George Karlaftis in the middle. Doesn't matter. You're going to give those guys all the attention. This is a one-on-one matchup winner, especially against a slow-footed offensive tackle. He's just going to burn right around that guy. It makes all the sense in the world to add him to the current complement that they have in the room.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. That's actually what it is. Like, there's no way you can be any upset by the move whatsoever because of the price you pay. But then you start looking into the player and, like, he gives the Chiefs something they don't have. And then you can never have too many pass rushers. So, excellent move. I did see this question from Jack that I did want to come back to. Uche can drop into coverage, actually. I mean, you're not going to confuse him for a, like, shut down, Fred Warner linebacker, but he can get into coverage. And actually, I again, just tweeted this out. One of the clips I saw was they had Uche mugging the B-gap. He then ran the pole in Tampa 2 and got to his mark and took away what the post would be. I just know Steve Spagnuolo is sitting there seeing that, and he is standing up. He is standing on the table right now. He is so ready to figure out how he can drop defensive linemen deeper and deeper. We've seen Drew Tranquil play deep half.
Oh, yeah.
We might see a defensive end coming soon.
Yeah.
We might see
deep half with Uche running the pole, like that is an insane alignment. It doesn't matter. Peyton Manning could be sitting there dropping back into coverage and looking at that and going, no chance in hell they just did this right now. I mean, Malik Herring drops into coverage a ton. for this team. He does. It's part of what they ask them to do. When they've got these blitzes, you got to have guys that can drop out and cover the flat. It's a great question. And yes, he absolutely can drop into coverage there and do more than enough to take away guys. Certainly more than some of these bigger guys that Steve Spagnuolo is already putting into those sort of coverage asks.
All right, so let's wrap a bow on this Joshua Uche talk. Craig, give me your final. I don't need a grade or anything like that. Just like your final thoughts. Perfect. That's all you know. Yeah, I agree. I think that's also an A. I mean, it's an A. You give up nothing. I think you get a guy that gives you something you don't, especially if they utilize him in the way I think that they will. If they come in with a pass rush plan specifically on how to utilize him with Chris Jones or Karlaftis, who can give you a little bit more insider power rush element, and you allow him to clean stuff up with the speed from the outside and then scheme up one-on-ones, potentially A+, man, because like I just need him to sack Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson one time in the playoffs. I'm just kind of like, hey,
and it's over.
Bonus.
It's well worth it.
So,
yeah.
So it puts a lot of pressure on the guy, the man himself, arguably your favorite person in the world, Steve Spagnuolo. Craig, is Steve Spagnuolo, as the kids say, him?
Well, I'm not a child, so I don't get to say that and have it come off the way that, yes, oh my God, yes. This man is on an insane heater right now. I know some of the streak stats that have been going around here and how many games it's been since the Chiefs have, not scored this many points, and yet they're winning all of that. The Kansas City Chiefs have not allowed a 300-yard passer or 28 points in a game since they played the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. This is outrageous that Steve Spagnuolo is getting this defense to perform at this level. And this year, I think we all took a step back and we went, all right, probably not going to be as good as last year. Like, it's just mathematically defensive regression. The guys that L'Jarius Sneed's not here anymore. We'll just kind of see how this shakes out. But it's okay. They'll still be good, but not great. They're great. They're wonderful. They're awesome. Like, let's start with Run D, Maddie. Holy cow, man.
I'm glad you're here because I keep having this conversation. I keep trying to carry the water on this. I'm like, hey, why are the Chiefs' run defense so good? And I'm like, I can't point to what I can talk about. I text you and I mentioned it. I talked about Leo Chenal and base, and I think that's a huge part. But outside of base, why is it so good? And I keep coming back to like, well, they just all do their job. That's really cool to say. It's fun to talk about, but everyone just does their job. Are you seeing anything specifically that you think stands out different than other years in their run D?
It's just so much more sound. And I don't know if it's just the cohesion of playing together with these guys so much, because there's largely not a lot of new faces in the front seven here. So you've got buy-in from a lot of these guys. You're seeing a lot more Big Mike Pennell play. And, Dirk texted me the same thing. He's like, what the hell is happening with the run defense? And I said, Big Mike is doing a lot right now. Derek Notty's come on pretty strong in the past couple games as well.
That goal line stand on the third down, he chucked the guards back like 3 yards and like really, that was a good play.
And then on top of that, Drew Tranquill, past 3 games, has been outstanding. Like, he really has been really good. Nick Bolton, after a very kind of shaking the rust off at the beginning of the season, has been really good, especially against the run. And on top of that, they're playing some more run-heavy teams. I know that Raiders, by default, because they're so banged up, had to use a lot more multiple tight end sets, but they played a lot of teams that have purposely built their offenses to take advantage of teams that don't want to play in base and don't want to be in that situation. And Steve Spagnuolo, whether it be, because of Leo Chenal and the weapon that he can be, or because Mike Pennell has really played really well, or because Felix Anudike-Uzomah it's technique, it's power, it's whatever it is. Like, you see some of those interior runs that get a yard or two, and as the pile's unfolding, who's at the bottom of it? Preventing the running back from driving their legs. It's Felix collapsing down on some of that. It's buy-in. Like, it really just feels, I'm with you, Maddie. It's buy-in, it's commitment to it, and it's priding themselves on doing this, hitting, bringing guys down, not allowing this to be the controlling factor in this. And it's just night and day. Every year under Steve Spagnuolo, we've seen this run defense be basically the weakness. And teams did not commit to it against the Chiefs. Very few did. Those games largely stick out in our minds because it was rough from the defensive perspective. Now you go back and you look at this and you see how offenses have tried to build to be a little heavier, run a little bit more, two tight end or two back situations or something like that, try and keep teams in base. Steve Spagnuolo welcomes base defense at this point. He's just like, no, let's get into it. Guess what? My play call sheet is just as long in base defense now as it was when we were playing in sub packages. So we're just going to show up and we're just going to kick your ass on the line of scrimmage with every single one of these defensive linemen. And oh yeah, we've got heat-seeking missiles and Nick Bolton, Leo Chanel, and Drew Tranquill that's going to just shoot a gap and go. It's outrageous to see how well as a team they are playing for each other right now.
I think it's that continuity thing, right? Like they were an excellent defense last year and arguably better, right? I don't have all the numbers. I don't want to split hairs, but they were arguably just as good, if not of a better defense last year. But the continuity that you see right now is crazy. And I think that's what's allowing them to get by with so much stuff. I also think Spags, compared to most defensive coordinators and most of the defensive coordinators operating in the NFL right now, he is very willing to stay pretty hard fast on some match rules. Like a lot of teams are kind of getting away from your man match stuff just because it doesn't do well against the run. It doesn't do well against everything. It doesn't play, people are getting away from it. They don't want their safeties to be in coverage that much that way, so on and so forth. Spags is still leaning into it pretty hard. And so that does allow you to protect your linebackers a little bit. And every now and then, like in this past game, we see a stretch of the game where the linebackers are being exploited in space. Nick Bolton had a rough first half to the game against the Raiders. They went after him a lot, turned around a little bit in the second half. But this was the first game in a while where I think you're like, oh, the linebackers aren't playing great in coverage. They have found a way to attack them. And part of that's because I think Spags protects them really well with some of the coverage shells on the back end. He puts a lot of pressure on his safeties. He doesn't really give your safeties much help. There's a lot of teams where safeties aren't that important of a role. The Chiefs aren't really one of them. And sometimes it bites them. When you get a double move against Brian Cook one-on-one from off coverage, yeah, you might give up a touchdown and a big long play there. But the other 59 plays, it allows your linebackers to play fast. It allows your corners to play physical. So I do think he does some unique stuff compared to the rest of the NFL. And then you have a bunch of guys on this team that have been here for a while. So these calls can be complex. They can be guys dropping from everywhere. You can always change it up anytime you want. That stuff's been there though. So I keep trying to figure out what's so different this year. And I think two things that we talked about, the assignment soundness, especially against the run, that's there. The next thing, and okay, Leo Chanel is also a third thing, I guess, but the next thing, the physicality. This team kicks ass. They hit, they fly downhill, they bully people. This defense is never going to be considered soft at any point in time. Even some of the games where the opponents are getting a little bit of traction on the ground and it seems like, oh, maybe they're picking up 4 to 5 yards at a time. It's not just by bullying this team, though. It's because they find a gap and they slash through it. They catch the linebacker run blitzing into the wrong gap and they get a step ahead of them or something like that. They aren't getting bullied anymore. And that's kind of different. So I think the physicality also stands out to me quite a bit.
Yeah, it's so violent. It really is so violent. Those impact. You see over the years with some of Spags' defenses there that even when a linebacker would get a fit or something like that, not necessarily Nick Bolton. Nick's been good at this, but even guys like Willie, Drew in some previous years, you see them make contact at the line of scrimmage. And then maybe there's another yard or two with a running back falling forward. Think basically every Kareem Hunt run where you think he's done and then 2 yards later, he's finally done. It was all that little bit of hidden yardage that was there. It's not there. Guys get stood up at the line of scrimmage. Look no farther than that goal line stand where, basically Chiefs are right up against it. Raiders just say, you know what? We're just going to line up. We're going to pound the rock. I know I haven't been working, but we're going to pound the rock.
Nope.
Bad idea. Real bad idea. Yes, Chris Jones was a monster on one of those. Absolute monster. And he's been playing, again, this goes back to my hypothesis. He got paid. He wasn't sack chasing as much anymore after this year. He looks a lot more similar to 2 years ago, Chris Jones, that was Defensive Player of the Year, that was in the running there because he's playing a complete game. He's bought in against the run. He's bought in on all of this. He's holding the point of attack. People aren't having to cover for it. There's not a weak link that you can target. It's not like when you see, again, this is why the whole Felix thing keeps coming up. I know I keep speaking about the man, but if I'm an offensive coordinator and I'm looking at this defensive line for the Chiefs and I'm looking at these linebackers, I'm trying to figure out who to target. because it doesn't work if I run at Chris Jones. Doesn't work if I run at Mike Pennell. Doesn't work if I run at George Karlaftis. I want nothing to do with Leo Chanel. Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil are going to shoot these A-gaps. I don't want nothing there. Okay, well, I'm going to run away, and I'm going to target
guys.
Yeah, I'm going to target Felix because historically he hasn't been as good against the run. And then, oh, by the way, he's setting the edge and turning everything inside. There's just nowhere to go. There's no advantageous look that you can get as an offense against this run defense right now. They are resetting the line of scrimmage. They are closing everything. It truly makes me wish that I was still doing the defensive film breakdown right now, because as nerding out as I am right now and as excited as I am, DJ and Mike would just be sitting there just drooling over this run defense right now. So, yeah, it's just exceptional. Whew.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah. And all right, you got me hot and heavy thinking about that. We gotta move on to a new subject. We gotta get going. But first, we're calling all Chiefs fans. And no, it's not to be a cornerback tryout for the Chiefs, maybe in the future. But right now, we are calling all Chiefs fans because you could be on the field at the 50 inside GEHA field for the official coin toss at the Chiefs home game this season. Please visit chiefs.com/GEHA right now. You can enter to win a chance to be on the field for the March to the three-peat. 1, 2, 3, 3 of them. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Enter for a chance to win at chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is the proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. And Craig, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a pretty awesome deal.
No, that sounds incredible to me. Like, I wish that we were doing this when I was regularly doing this podcast and lived in Kansas. Like this, man.
Yeah, that's kind of helpful. All right. Well, I promise. I wish I could too. Maybe I'll go back to Kansas City just to enter.
There we go.
We got to talk about some cornerbacks here in a second, but first we got a quick little break. Then we'll be right back.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNLab. That's mintmobile.com/KCSNLab. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSNLab. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
We are back, and I am still here with Craig Stout. I have not chased him away yet. He is still here with me, and we have gone over the 30-minute mark talking defense. Hallelujah. Nobody tell Kent he won't watch
keep
it away.
Going.
Okay, fine. Okay, we will keep it going then. The Chiefs, Najee Johnson leaves the game against the Raiders in the concussion protocol. It doesn't. With concussions, you never know. I don't want to speculate and get too far out ahead of myself here, right? But we don't know if it's a long-term injury or if he's going to miss just one game, no games. We don't know how it's going to play out. But injuries seem like they're piling up a little bit in the Chiefs secondary. So you've lost Jalen Watson, who had replaced L'Jarius Sneed very well, been an excellent player outside. Yeah. You clearly take a step down going to Najee Johnson, but you hope he works into that position. If not, Joshua Williams is kind of the next guy up. How are we feeling with the secondary right now going through this Jalen Watson injury?
Man, I'm glad they got a pass rusher. It's going to be interesting to watch the rest of this year. The Chiefs have been very fortunate that they have a position coach in Dave Merritt that has essentially turned everything he's touched to gold at this point. The level of play that they've got out of the guys that they have lined up, everybody essentially outside of Trent McDuffie that they've just basically thrown chump change at and said, okay, go start for a Super Bowl team. And then they've gone now a year and a half plus without allowing a 300-yard passer. That's exceptional. So I couch all of this knowing that the guys that are going to end up lining up there are probably going to perform way better than I expect them to. That being said, I really need to see a little bit more out of Joshua Williams before I feel comfortable with that again. He grew into it as the rest of the game went, but man, it was rough getting off the field to start here. Made a rough special teams penalty that kind of looked like he was guiding somebody out of bounds, but you put your hands on a guy out of bounds when he's falling down, you're asking for a penalty there, and then comes around, gets a holding penalty that extends a drive, puts some points on the board. It's one of those that you look at and you're like, oh man, that's just really, really, really rough. So you don't want to be in a situation where you have to count on that guy right at this very moment. But at the same time, he's the best you got right now. I've liked what we've seen out of Christian Roland Wallace, but you're pushing Trent McDuffie outside in that scenario. Like, you have to push Trent McDuffie outside. I think we saw what happens. Brock Bowers ends up lining up outside. The Chiefs treat him as a wide receiver. They put Trent McDuffie on there. Trent's going to lose that. He's going to lose that at the catch point. There's no good way to do that. There are bigger wide receivers that he's going to see. It's just very tough for him to play in that scenario. You would like to see Trent McDuffie stay inside or follow around a specific receiver all game long that, matches up with his skill set. That's why you've got to have like a Joshua Williams there. But now all of a sudden you've got so many more injuries where you almost have to have Trent play outside with Christian Roland Wallace out there and Joshua Williams, or, instead of Christian Roland Wallace, maybe it's Shamari Connor gets to play there. But essentially, you are down so many corners that you don't have a choice. You don't have an option in this scenario. Trent McDuffie is probably going to have to play outside, which is why when all these rumors about, well, there might be another player coming until, the pass rusher ended up inactive last week. But I was always guessing it was going to be attempting to sign a cornerback just because it just doesn't play the way that Steve Spagnuolo wants to play his personnel right now. And with all the injuries, you don't have anybody coming back, really. I mean, Najee will, but they've been rotating him in and out so much that I don't know that I can sufficiently say it's going to be Najee and Joshua on the outside with Trent in the slot. I don't know that they trust those guys to do that yet.
Yeah, it's not okay. One, losing Watson, I think, does really take a step back to the way the guys have been playing, because we talk about it every time. Like, there's just been this competition between Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson, and Jalen Watson on who's going to play, who's going to start, so on and so forth. Watson keeps winning it, and it's felt like the first couple years it was kind of not by default, because that sounds bad, but it was kind of, he was the most consistent. He picked things up the quickest. He also didn't get hurt one year, which is helpful. But it kind of felt like it was a little bit more of like he just did the best of the bunch rather than doing really, really good. This year, though, he comes back from injury. The preseason's not great, but from the moment the real game started, he's been great. He has clearly taken that step. And yes, part of that playing in this system is protecting him. Trent's taking all the best wide receivers. Watson's getting to play an outside receiver a lot of times, getting to get hands on him, press him because of the way they structure this defense. There is built-in help around him to where he doesn't have to cover everything. Very Charvarius Ward-esque. I'm not saying he's as good as Ward. This was the thing about Charvarius Ward when he was here, is there is protection built into the system, the way they're kind of playing it, right? And so he's playing great. You lose him, and now you got to hope somebody steps in. And we've seen Joshua Williams play important snaps for this team. We haven't seen Najee Johnson, but all the reports are the team kind of likes him. He had clearly taken over for Joshua Williams, so we have to think there's at least a baseline of a playable corner there. I can buy that. Let's say best case scenario, right? We're getting playable starting level cornerback play from Josh Williams and Najee Johnson. That's still a big step back from what Watson was giving you, right? That's a big step back from those two. And now all of a sudden, guess what? You also have a third corner or safety or whoever out there in the slot who has to be in the slot now because McDuffie's your only other outside guy. Now, how great do you feel about Shamari Connor? Now, we can have a Christian Roland Wallace talk, right now at another time. I think he's been promising so far. Like, he's looked actually good lots. Like, I'm not upset with him coming in. He outsnapped, I think, Connor this past week against the Raiders. Interesting matchup to have him outsnap Connor as well. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. So I don't dislike him there. It's just you're starting to get a little bit weaker and a little bit weaker on the outside. We will have to see how they adjust, or do they just live and say, hey, we know Joshua Williams can be got downfield. We know Najee Johnson can be got downfield. We're just going to bet that you're not going to hit that 8 times this game to beat us. Oh, by the way, we're going to add another pass rusher to make you do it really fast when you do too.
Yeah. The thing that I see, and this really showed up at the very start of the game. I think people were freaking out a little bit in those first couple of drives, defensive drives, where it was, what is happening? Why are guys so open? Why is there nobody, filling the alley or things like that? Guess what? You had cornerbacks that they really wanted these safeties to protect. And yeah, you look at the Raiders and you say, well, they don't really have a ton of burners on this team. Why are they focused so much on the deep passing game? Because they needed to protect those corners. That shows you the level of trust that Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt had in them to start. And at a certain point, they just said, all right, and it was shortly before Najee Johnson got hurt. They were starting to make that adjustment, but it continued after that, where they just said, all right, screw it. We just got to live and die by it. If we get beat deep by Gardner Minshew and this set of personnel, then we get beat deep by him. But we're going to stop playing like that. And then all of a sudden, switch flips. They're playing short passing game. It doesn't really matter anymore. You got guys that are making tackles in the alley. And now all of a sudden, we all look at this and they're like, wow, the defense was exceptional. But the way they came out of the gate was, hey, we can't get beat deep. We don't want to get beat deep. And we don't trust these guys not to get beat deep right now, which is weird to say from a guy that was a tier 1 CBAT in Najee Johnson, who has speed, and Joshua Williams, who has speed. You look at those two guys and you're like, well, they can run vertically. It's much more than that. It's tracking the ball when you're running vertically. It's, being able to stay in phase with a wide receiver, field for the route, all of those things. And that's where I think we kind of see some of the lacking pieces of it and some of the lack of trust in it, which is why I just keep looking at this. It's like Spags told you right there. It's like, I don't love what I have to put on the field right now. So this is what we're going to try to do to counter it. Makes me wonder if there's maybe I don't want to say that there's 3 trades coming before the trade deadline, because that would be too much. Like, it really would be too much for this team. But simultaneously, I would not be surprised if another one happened, just so they don't have to play that way.
Yeah, it's not that they don't have any money, but they're definitely a little low. Uche only hits, I think, the cap for like right under $1 million. So like they still have a little bit of wiggle room, but not enough, I think, to make a move. They're also getting low on draft capital. And it's just, it seems unlikely, especially because what are you really going to give up to get somebody that comes in and immediately clears Joshua Williams and Najee Johnson? Or Christian Roland Wall. So like, I get it that none of those guys are as good as we want. This was the fear coming into the year, was the level of play we're about to see down the stretch was what it was going to be. And that might be good enough. The problem is I think it's clearly a step back from what Watson was giving you, which was giving you one of, if not the best defense in the NFL during that stretch. Now that's gone. How do they react? I'm with you. I have some concerns that it's going to be able to stay at that level, but maybe it will. Maybe it will. Yeah. So we'll have to see. I think they'll figure out.
We have said this before about this secondary before, these exact words.
Every year. This was the fear coming in, right? It was that Watson was going to be at the same level as Najee Johnson and Joshua Williams right now. He was going to be the same guy he has been, in which they're playable, but they're not like I don't want to say game changing, but they're not like an important part. They're not something that offenses have to like actively be ready for. They're just there and they're playable. Watson had not been that. He'd been better. You couldn't just be like, oh, I love my matchup against Jalen Watson. Let me just wear that out. Let me just hit that button over and over again, because it wasn't working. I don't know if it's going to work now or not. We'll have to find out, like I said, going forward. It's just this was your potential fear for losing L'Jarius Sneed. The problem is you replaced him and then lost that replacement. So we will see. Do you have any final defensive thoughts to get off before we move to the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, one more. We're not talking about Justin Reed enough right now. Just collectively, nationally. My goodness. He has been very good. Very, very, very good as of late. I know that he gets beat. I know he got beat for a touchdown this week. That's not a good matchup for him in that scenario, but as a tone-setting individual, the number of plays that I've seen him come up and make from deep on second down that should have been, cut this from a 2nd and 9 to like a 3rd and 1. Now all of a sudden it's a 2nd and 9 that gets cut down to a 3rd and 6. And now Steve Spagnuolo can get into his coverage bag. Now he doesn't have to worry as much about the run. I've lost count at this point in time the number of plays that Justin Reed has made in those sorts of scenarios. The hidden plays, the hidden yardage that he just keeps making time and time again. And then he's been making some bigger plays as well. He's been playing very, very well in the secondary as well. It's just all of that run support and that underneath support that he's been bringing to the table that has just kept them ahead of the sticks. One of the reasons why they're so good in success rate in those scenarios is partially because Justin Reed's been playing out of his mind a little bit.
Yeah, Justin Reed coming downhill has been phenomenal. I think there's been times where he's been definitely targeted in coverage. And
Yes.
I think when everything else, and I guess you can lump him with the linebackers because he's playing in the, that area of the field a lot. When that is your only weakness, you can more than make up for it. You can protect it and you can use those guys all to their strengths. This is why we're saying a Najee Johnson and Joshua Williams have to step up, because now all of a sudden, if I have the second level that can be focused on, that can be taken advantage of, that's Reed included at times, or these linebackers, I need good play on the outside. But Reed versus the run, Reed coming downhill, great. We talked about physicality being like a mainstay of this defense. He might be the most of the tone setters. I mean, it's got to be him or Drew Tranquill, I think, right? I mean, Leo Chenal, obviously, but like I think Tranquill comes through and hits guys at a crazy level. So does Reed. So yeah, that's a good shout out. But it's time, we still do got to talk offense. We can't do just the defensive
fine.
show. Normally, I would oblige you and do that like you asked me 13 times today. However, the Chiefs traded for DeAndre Hopkins last week. We saw him in his first action. So I figure we should talk about DeAndre Hopkins a little bit. I think the fans want it. So, I'll go first here with this. DeAndre Hopkins, first action, didn't run a lot of routes. And on the routes he ran, well, I'm going to go say it's pretty damn good. He was open a lot. There was a lot of even targets he didn't get or did get. He was open a lot. He ran, I think, 14 routes. I think I posted a clip of like 6 of them, 5 or 6. All of them, he were open. Some he got the ball, some he didn't. Always open. There was another 3 or 4 where he just ran like a little hitch versus off coverage, which you would say is open. The ball just went elsewhere. Like he did a good job. I thought he did really good. And I think you can see if you look through what he's doing and where he's winning and see where that is and kind of put that in your mind and then watch the Chiefs game, you're like, that's a missing piece. That's the puzzle piece that's been under the couch, but like not just under it, but like underneath the leg. So you didn't see it when you look for it. That's DeAndre Hopkins. If you watch where he's winning versus what the Chiefs do or don't do.
I mean, it just feels different. Patrick Mahomes' passing chart looks different with DeAndre Hopkins on the field. The one that really got me, and I know that Jeff talked about this a little bit, the out route at the end of the first half. That happened. He came up and with strong hands, secured the catch on the sidelines, dragged the feet, gets out, and it was a quick win on an out route, which is hard to do when you got a defense with 7 seconds left. That's like, okay, don't allow them to get out of bounds. They don't have any timeouts left. Don't allow this. This was something that we just haven't seen for the Chiefs in a number of years. We haven't had, this on our television screens watching this football team do in this ways. I watched that singular play and I just went, that's it. That's what I needed to see. That is really all that I needed to see. Yeah, the stuff where he was sinking into zones was great. The way that he was, as he's coming out of his breaks, Xavier Worthy, pay attention. As he's coming out of his breaks, the way that he's chopping hands, the way that he's getting DBs off of him and creating that separation, like it is confidence inspiring. And he's bought in. Like I have seen more on social media and more talk from D-Hop this week than I think I have probably in 4 or 5 years. Like after the game, he seems genuinely excited to be here and knows I got more coming. I know they're going to integrate me even more, but the stuff that I've already done fits so well with the other pieces of this offense. I am really excited for 2 weeks from now. Now, I know that that's kind of skipping past a game this weekend, but I'm really excited for 2 weeks from now going up against a Denver Broncos defense that is elite, that is really, really, really good. Him against Patrick Surtain is going to be fun. Patrick Surtain might be the best corner in the league right now. Like he's
the way
playing
Sauce
at
is playing,
level. Yeah. He might be the best corner in the league right now. The way that I see D-Hop playing against some of this stuff, the way that he's going to be integrated and used in this offense and just that little glimpse, I am really excited for that because that might be the one where we're like, hey, that's why we got that guy. That is exactly why.
You mentioned the hands, and that's a big thing that sticking out to me. And you were even talking about that out route. On that out route, that's what it is. Like, he doesn't necessarily use the hands a ton on the out route, but he releases, he flashes both to be completely in position to take a punch, have the DB shot it, and that clearly threw off the DB's timing. So it already put the DB on his heels, and he wasn't ready for that, right? So Hopkins was in position to catch the punch, which would have been an easy win. So the DB has to react and change his plan, which gives Hop the leverage. It allows him to get out of that outbreak. The DB's just chasing. He's never in contention. It's like, it's a little route running thing that doesn't look super flashy, like the later route on the jump ball to Worthy, where he essentially, hits the, I don't even know what to call it, where he fakes an out route and then throws the DB, but the court coming back inside. It's like a fake half spin move. It was phenomenal too. But like, that's a flashy route that everyone's going to look at and say, there's a great route. But that little hand usage and then speed cutting the out route, but staying flat. That's great route running that doesn't pop off the screen. So he does that kind of stuff. You talk about the sinking into zones. There's some of these in breakers on the backside of these these 3x1 formations, and they didn't hit any of them, but I think they're there. It sounds like, I think I'd seen this too. We got it from Chief Kelsey here, that Mahomes had watched the tablet on the sideline post game and said, I saw on the tablet, I missed him a couple times open. Yeah. And that's going to happen because they're not used to looking at the ISO'd wide receiver on the backside to see if he wins. That's not something that happens in Kansas City, because even when Tyreek Hill was here, guess what? He wasn't really the ISO'd backside receiver. It's been since like 2021 at the latest when Travis Kelce was actually winning those routes consistently that you were going to them, right? So,
I mean, MVS is the guy that's been over there the past 2 years. Yeah. He's not looking over there.
Yeah. And like, when that's your fifth progression, 30 yards, 50 yards downfield, fine, whatever. But like, now we're talking about real routes. So no, I think the Hopkins stuff's only going to improve. I think you're going to get stuff that starts to mesh. I mean, like the one incompletion thrown to him, Hopkins was open on a corner route. He stayed flat to avoid the safety, and he ran to an open space. Mahomes threw it deep to avoid the flat corner. He threw it to an open space. It wasn't neither guy was necessarily wrong. They just both went a little bit different on that route adjustment. They'll get that cleaned up in the future. Somebody's going to learn where the other's going to go. That's the only miss they had, and that would have added another 20 yards, 15, 20 yards onto the play. So it's just like, I think there's a lot there. And like, I can really see it when watching. Like I said, it is that puzzle piece that's not there. Is there maybe available other wide receivers that I think would provide more instant offense right away? Possibly, right? But from what I saw from Hopkins, he looked pretty spry for a dude that was playing with the no MCL or a torn MCL right now.
Right.
He didn't look like a guy. He looked fresher. He looked more like he did last year with the Titans than he had this year. So,
are you telling me that maybe playing with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph kills your will to live a little bit?
Look,
is that
look? Watch how this man went and celebrated with Travis Kelce after a touchdown, which he was open. He could have caught a touchdown this play. And the first thing he did was as excited and as giddy as a rookie would be when his team scores the touchdown in week 1. He runs up to Travis Kelce and starts celebrating. There's a guy, like, I'm sure he's met him before. I don't mean that they've never met, but they haven't been teammates. They probably haven't played on that many Pro Bowl teams because the Chiefs are always in the Super Bowl. And he runs up to this man and is celebrating with him as hard as he possibly can. Like, that's a dude that is happy to be in the situation that he is in right now. And I just think I do think it's all going to fall into place. I really do. I would kind of be surprised. It's one game. I'm jumping to conclusions here, but like, I would be kind of surprised if this isn't that big step that really the Chiefs needed to elevate this offense to consistently more dynamic and more threatening.
Yes, to take it from the number 7 DVOA offense and the most efficient offense in the NFL to a higher. I know. Yes. We spend all this time running down the offense and how bad they are, and they don't look great. Like, we know they don't look as good as they could in this scenario, and yet, watch the rest of the league for a little while and then come back with some of these takes on some of this. Yeah. But I look at the way that, again, he sinks into zones, the way that Travis Kelce sinks into zones, the way that Juju Smith-Schuster sinks into zones when he's going to be healthy and some of that. You got 3 guys that are elite zone beating receiving options. At some point, there's going to be a defensive coordinator that's going to go, oh, well, we got to play man because if we play zone, we're going to die. And so, okay, you're going to play man. Cool. Guess what? D-Hop can beat that as well. Travis Kelce has the ability to beat that as well. But that helps Xavier Worthy. Put him in man coverage. Put him in man coverage. Allow him to use that speed without maybe that bracket over the top. Or if they're playing 2-man, good luck. Kareem Hunt is going to run all over you. Patrick Mahomes is going to escape the pocket and run for 14. it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario if this pans out this way. So even though we look at this roster and we say, okay, yeah, this is DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt. What year are we in? Seriously, these guys can't be functional pieces of a really good offense, certainly not one that's going to be a Super Bowl winner here. And I look at that and I say, yeah, but the way that Andy is going to be able to put all these guys in positions, the way that you have to play them as a defensive coordinator, it is very, very hard to keep that down for that long, just because those four guys can beat you in so many different ways. And, oh, yeah, you still got this fast guy who needs to play through contact a little bit better, and we will see some of that, or it all, again, learn from D-Hop. This is beneficial for him as well. Learn from D-Hop.
Even beyond the contact, learn how to control your body so you avoid the contact. That's I think what it is. I mentioned it. That's what's been most disappointing to me from Xavier Worthy. It's not that I expect you to beat press. It's when a guy's playing 5 yards off and trying to catch you and disrupt you in your route, that he's not dipping his shoulder, that he's not getting skinny and avoiding the contact and making the guy chase him. I watched D-Hop even for the Titans this year, and I get it, much better player, a lot more experience, right? But like, even at this age, with this level of athleticism, he's dropping the shoulder. He's showing the arm and pulling it away. So there's no contact that happens whatsoever. You get Worthy to do that. I don't even mean run through contact. Literally just get him to avoid contact within the structure of the route without having to McCall it way around, right? And like, I think you're cooking with something. So yeah, I think there's definitely stuff he can learn from. It sounds like everybody in the locker room is getting along. I'm not surprised by that whatsoever. So hopefully he can pick up stuff from him. But at the end of the day, you said it, can't play zone against the Chiefs eventually. When Juju's back and you have D-Hop, Juju, Kelce on the field, I don't know if you can play zone against that. I really don't. So you're going to have to go play man. D-Hop, from what I've seen, is going to beat your press man coverage. I mean, we'll see against Patrick Surtain when they go up in that matchup, right? But like, he can still beat press. Kelce can do it at times, right? Now, all of a sudden, are you going to give those safeties? Are they going to be helping with those guys? Or are they just going to be still staying on top of Worthy? Somebody somewhere is going to be getting legitimate one-on-one opportunities. Worthy needs to take those steps to take advantage, but I also think he's now going to be in a better position to do so, to really utilize that speed from what they're doing. So I think this is going to work out well for everybody. The thing is, you got to have some pass protection to get the ball. And we got to
end on this. We got to bring it down, like right here at the very end here, Maddie. Come on, man.
We've had a lot of people in here sticking with us for 45 minutes of defensive talk. They heard us gush about DeAndre Hopkins, and I have a feeling that we're going to have another DeAndre Hopkins discussion later this week and next week and every week coming up. But we do got to have this conversation. It seems like Wanya Morris is steadily getting worse the more time he is out there. 2 out of the last 3 games now, he's given up 4 pressures. He's given up a sack in all of the games. Even, I would say, the 49ers was his best statistical game. Problem with that is they gave him a lot of help. And so, it seems like he is trending the wrong direction. And this is kind of what happened last year when he stepped in for Donovan Smith as well. The more tape that got out there, the more he struggled. So I'm not necessarily saying they need to make a look towards going back to Kingsley Suamatea, but what do you do with this left tackle spot right now? Like, what is the solution, Greg?
Well, I believe it's called Suamataia, Maddie. I mean Ken's not here to correct you, so I will be the one. He's traditionally me who pronounces everybody's name correctly and has never mispronounced anybody ever. No, I did not like what I saw from Wanya Morris. Again, we've talked about it before. He's a very athletic individual. It's just, he's very slow out of his stance. His footwork is not great. He doesn't climb the pocket as well as you would expect a guy with his sort of movement ability to do. And at this point, we're now in year 2 with Andy Heck. You start to wonder if it's going to click. You start to wonder if that's going to be a thing that's going to happen for him. So you have started to see pass rushers. Again, this happened last year. It's now happening here. Max Crosby was just timing the snap. That's all it was. Tyree Wilson timing the snap, trying to be that first guy off the snap, beat him out of his stance, because afterwards it's done. He's either holding you or he's giving up a pressure, or that's what it is. That's what we see out of Kingsley, where all of a sudden you see a guy that can move, can have a little bit of that recovery. And so naturally you look at that and you're like, well, let's, if Wanya Morris is not going to be playing to this level, if there's some tape, the word's out on him, this is what you got to try and do. You either change up the hard count a little bit, or you try and figure out a way to get Kingsley Suamataia in the football game. Problem with that is Wanye Morris is getting wrecked by Max Crosby out there on that drive, like just absolutely destroyed by him. Guess who's also going to get destroyed by a pass rusher like Max Crosby? Kingsley Suamataia. We talked about it at the very, very beginning of this year. Talked about it during the draft process. The hands need work, standing up to power a little bit. Like there's all of those things that a pass rusher like Max Crosby is going to take advantage of. Kingsley got benched because Trey Hendrickson worked him because he's got great hands. He's got the ability to really just mix up the bag, keep you on your toes. Max is significantly better than Trey Hendrickson, and that's saying something because Trey's pretty good. So this is not the game. I saw everybody kind of clamoring for Kingsley. It's like, oh, put him in. He's not going to be worse. It's like, I'm going to pump the brakes against Max Crosby a little bit. I want to see him against somebody else. Don't throw him out there and get baptized by one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, even though Wanye Morris currently is. Stick with it because Patrick Mahomes seems a lot more comfortable with Wanye Morris than he does with Kingsley Suamataia, and maybe that's just his growth into feeling out the pocket a little bit more this season, willingness to take a little bit more hits in week 8 than week 1. Maybe that's all that is. But at the same time, I don't want to put the kid out there again and say, okay, go hold your own. You're cold. Here's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. I just didn't think that was going to set him up for success.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I come down to is I don't know if either are a great option, but I think you have to go back and at the end of the day, this is what I look at. Who does Patrick Mahomes want out there protecting his blind side? And it hasn't been good with either guy. However, and maybe it's just been more time, maybe it's been the focus, and maybe it wouldn't have changed no matter who was in there. Mahomes, even though he's getting blasted off the left side there because Wanye Morris is getting smoked routinely, even because Wanye Morris isn't having great games and he's holding and doing X, Y, and Z, Patrick Mahomes feels like he looks a little bit more comfortable. He looks like he's okay with the kind of pressures that Morris is giving up because the majority of them, guess what, are a little bit deeper, a little bit longer. He has a slight chance. Some of the things that was happening with Kingsley, it's not always just an outside rush. There's inside, there's through his chest. He was running out of foot on that side because Kingsley was getting pushed into his lap. So if Mahomes feels more comfortable with Wanye Morris out there and the difference between them two as pass protectors and run blockers is kind of negligible at this point in time, probably go with the guy that's making Pat feel more comfortable. I understand. I think Jeff Schwartz had a great point. What's the long-term plan here? If Kingsley's the long-term solution, why not let him get the reps and go through it? I understand that line of thinking. And if that's the case, I would understand it if they announced that. But my bigger thing comes away is look at the moves they're making. Their goal right now is to win the Super Bowl this year. If Patrick Mahomes looks you and says, I feel more comfortable with Wanye Morris getting beat quickly at 10 yards than I do Kingsley getting beat quickly at 7 yards, you go with the guy he says every single time. So if they make the switch, that obviously means Mahomes signs off on it as well. It's just by the naked eye test, it says Mahomes feels more comfortable dealing with the quick pressures being given up by Wanye Morris right now than he did the quick pressures being given up by Kingsley to start the year. So that's where I think you have to ride, even if it's not great. Keep that Frisco playbook ready anytime you go up against a good pass rusher because you're going to need it. When teams go to hunt him, you're going to need it. Juwan Taylor's played good these past couple weeks. Let that man go. He's played good, but minus the penalties, he's played pretty good since the playoffs last year. Let him go one-on-one with whoever. Keep that help going towards, I think, whoever's at left tackle.
Now, that being said, Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week, well, they don't have like a truly dominant pass rusher. So you're not looking at that. I mean, Yaya Diaby has 3 sacks. He's got as many sacks as Levante David does this year. So that should tell you.
He's a good player.
He's a good player. He's a good player, but not like
he's better than Tyree Wilson.
He's not Tyree Wilson. Yeah. But I mean, then you get the Broncos next. That's Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper. Zach Allen's, inside outside flexibility.
Zach Allen's been good.
Yes. Zach Allen has been good, but again, you don't have necessarily the sort of dominant force. Now, the Broncos are rushing the passer really, really well, but a fair bit of those are like late in the rep sort of deals because they've got an elite pass coverage unit. And then you got the Bills after that.
Zach Allen has 43 pressures this year. Holy.
Yes, he does, man. He has been outrageous. Probably because he's got a very big helmet That's
Littlehead.
probably what it is, Maddie. It's probably what it is. And then you go to Gregory Rousseau and AJ Epinesa for the Bills, and Von Miller's floating around there and all that. But I don't know. I think if you're gonna make the move, like if you want Kingsley to be back in the fold, you start now. Have him build up into that. You get a couple of weeks of non-elite, sort of pass rushers that you have to go up against. Again, look back at this. You had a Bosa and you had Max Crosby the past couple of weeks. Like, come on, man. No, you don't want anything to do with that in that scenario. Build up to that confidence, build up to what you are doing there. Bills, Panthers. Then by the time you see Max Crosby again for the Las Vegas Raiders, maybe you feel a little bit more comfortable with it. I think if we're going to see it, I think we'd have to see it now to try and build the confidence and build up towards it rather than trying to throw him into the fire after the bye week against two guys that, frankly, will eat every left tackle's lunch in the league, let alone a rookie one.
Yeah. If there's a time to do it, it would be now to get this ramp up period, especially if you have some quicker, like you get more time with the way the games are offset and stuff like that, because it's a Monday game. I just think that you got to go with whatever Mahomes says. So if he gives you the okay, make the switch now. If he comes back and says, like the eye test, again, just an eye test says that he's more comfortable, you just got to run it out with Wanye Morris because the goal clearly is to win this year. We shall see what the Chiefs do. I mean, Craig, this was a great episode. Thank you for coming in here. Kent was too busy for us, too Hollywood for me. So I'm so glad that
hanging out with Patrick Mahomes all night. I mean, what? My goodness, what does he think? So help me, if Patrick Mahomes gets worse, you all know who to blame. But if he gets better, we are never going to hear the
end Tucker did it.
Hollywood. Oh no, you're right. Tucker's there too. Never mind. Obviously. The D stands for fixed the offense.
Oh, let's go. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us here on the KC Laboratory. I will be back on a Matter Day with Matt Hamilton, myself, and Matt Swanson to break down the Chiefs Monday nighter against the very wide receiver depleted Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Chiefs quest to go 8-0. Until then, hey, thank you guys and enjoy the week. Thank you, Craig.
Love you guys.
That's great. Craig is